Hey everyone, excited to be back for this week's edition of Frequently Asked Questions for Commercial Real Estate. In today's video, what I thought I'd do is talk about a document that's extremely important in commercial real estate and one that's used very regularly. And that's actually known as a letter of intent. Now, you may be thinking, what exactly is this document? Well, it's a non-binding document that lays out the terms you're willing to accept in a commercial lease agreement. So let's say that you're going out there and looking at different leasing opportunities and you find one that you really think would be a good fit for you. Your commercial agent would draft up a document that would lay out the terms that you're willing to accept. These may not be exactly what the asking terms are from the landlord, and once that document is created, the letter of intent, you would submit that to the landlord, and they would either accept, reject, or you would modify the terms until everyone agrees, and then you would actually draft the actual lease agreement, which is an actual binding document. So today, what I thought I'd do is lay out just a sample template of the lease, the letter of intent, to show you exactly some of the things that you need to consider as you're crafting your own. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. All right. So as you can see, this is just a sample template that we use here at our brokerage. Again, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't want you to take this as legal advice or anything. But again, this is generally a non-binding document that just highlights the high-level overview of what terms you may be willing to accept. So, as you can see, you start off with the language of letter of intent, specify the landlord, which you could pull off the PVA or your property valuation of your particular city. The tenant would be yourself, and the premises would be the place that you're interested in leasing. From there, you'd probably want to specify the total square footage of the space, and then the term that you'd like to pursue. In this case, this would be for a 5-year lease plus a free rent period, and we'll dive into that a little bit later in the letter of intent. But there are different concessions that landlords may be willing to offer you, in particular if you are a financially solvent tenant. The fifth thing you need to consider is your rental options. Now, what an option is it gives you the right to renew your lease for a predetermined length of time for predetermined terms. They're generally beneficial for tenants because it gives you the flexibility or puts you really in the driver's seat. So let's say the market's doing really well and market rents have shot up through the roof. You'd be able to renew your lease at a predetermined rate, which in most situations may be maybe less than what the market rate is. Or if the economy is doing poorly and there's a lot of vacant property out there and a lot of landlords are offering pretty good incentives to lease their space, you can choose not to exercise your option and then go find opportunities that may be cheaper in a better area or whatever else. So it just does put you in the driver's seat. So considering a rental option would actually be quite a big benefit to a tenant. Next, you'd have to specify what the intended use is. Landlords want to make sure that your intended use is in line with what they're expecting. They wouldn't necessarily, especially if you're in a multi-tenant center, they may have exclusivity with other tenants, meaning that you wouldn't be able to operate let's say, phone store if there's another phone store on site and they have exclusive use of being the only phone store on site. So specifying what your intended use is gives the landlord an understanding of what to expect before they lease you the space. Next is the landlord's scheduled delivery date. This obviously can fluctuate based on whether or not there's got to be repairs done to the space or any build out done. That could obviously fluctuate. In this case, it would just be whatever you think would be appropriate for the landlord to deliver the property to. Next is the landlord improvements. This has to do with build outs or whatever else. Sometimes landlords are open to doing build outs, or they'll offer something called a tenant improvement allowance, which is an amount that they credit to you in order to help you build out the space. And this is where you would actually specify that language that says, hey, the landlord will do X, Y, Z for this particular space, and we'll be expecting the landlord to provide $3-4 a square foot in tenant improvement allowance to be able to build out the space accordingly. So that's that. Landlord warranties. This just means that we're just making sure that the landlord is going to provide the space in an appropriate way. You know, the roof is not leaking, the plumbing's functioning correctly, heating and air system's correct, electrical system, etc. And that's going to be maintained or done so throughout the term. Rent commencement. Either it starts the day that the landlord delivers you the property or sometime thereafter if you have either free rent or abated rent or whatever else. So In this case, the commencement date would be 2 months after the landlord's delivery date because you would be asking for some sort of concessions from the landlord. And this is where you would say, you know, if you wanted some free rent or partial rent, you could specify the term that says, hey, we want 2 months free from the landlord upon the upon the delivery date. Now, what you want to do is make sure that the base rent is specified clearly. So in this case, it's a 50,000 square foot space, as you can see up here, and it's going to be marketed, or we're asking for $6 a square foot in rent, which would mean that the total yearly rent would be $300 per year at a monthly rate of $25,000 per month. What the option rent specifies is if you were to exercise your 5-year option that we specified up top, what's the rent going to be? In this case, it would be $7 a square foot is what we're asking, and which would equal about $350,000 per year, or roughly $29,166.66 per month. It's usually good to specify that within the letter of intent. All right. We'll kind of skip these two. These are pretty self-explanatory. And then additional operating expenses are something that we always include in our letters of intent, because there's sometimes, in particular, if it's a multi-tenant center, there will be some additional operating expenses known as common area maintenance, which means that it's the general upkeep of the area that is partially shared by each of the tenants on site. And also, if it's a triple net lease, you may be required to pay your pro rata share of taxes, insurance, etc., which would be specified within this operating agreement. But one thing that we do obviously usually recommend our tenants, our clients do, is consider asking for some sort of cap on these operating expenses, if possible. If you have the leverage in order to do so, it may be wise to consider requesting a cap, because you don't know what these expenses are going to do over a period of time. And in particular, if you have a long-term lease, it's probably pretty likely that those expenses are going to continue to rise over time. So if you can get a cap on those expenses, at least you know that you can mitigate some of the risk of those costs getting out of control. And then obviously you want to specify what the utilities, who's responsible for utilities on site, content liability surge, and in particular with retail, signage is extremely important. So wanting to specify what you're able to have on site is going to be very important for your business. And then this is more of the broker language to make sure that the broker is compensated accordingly. And then at the end, you would specify, when does this expire? Because again, you want to create a sense of urgency on the other side. So if you specify saying, hey, we're going to submit this letter of intent and it's going to expire in 3 days or 5 days or whatever else, at least they have a deadline in order to shoot for as they approach the landlord and you go through the process of trying to work out a lease agreement for this particular property. So I hope that was of help. I'll be posting a link below that actually shares this document with you if you guys are interested in having it. Again, if you're interested or looking to lease commercial property in the area here in the Louisville metro area, I'd be happy to help you do so. My name is Raphael Collazo, and my email is raphael@grisantigroup.com, or you can reach me at my cell phone at 502-536-7315. Again, if you like these videos, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. I love providing awesome, engaging content that is related to commercial real estate. So I hope you guys enjoy this video, and we'll see you guys next week. See ya.